The pool deck smelled like chlorine and ambition, and neither had ever been offered to Serena Adjei for free. She was 23 years old, standing in the Etobicoke Olympium on a Tuesday morning in late October, her swim bag slung over one shoulder and her acceptance letter from the National Development Program folded in her back pocket. The same letter she had read 47 times on the bus ride over. She had earned her way here through 6 years of 5 a.m. wake-ups, a part-time job cleaning offices on Bloor Street, and a mother who worked double shifts at Sunnybrook so the hydro bill didn't get cut off again. Serena wasn't here because anyone had handed her anything. She was here because she had taken it. Head coach of the National Development Program was a man named Gerald Fitch, 61 years old, 3 Olympic cycles on his resume, 2 gold medalists to his name, both of them photographed beside him on the wall of his office, like hunting trophies. He was already on deck when Serena walked through the doors, clipboard in hand, watching the other recruits warm up with the careful, unmeasuring gaze of someone who had already made up his mind about everything. He looked at Serena once, just once. Then he turned back to his clipboard. "Adjei," he said, not looking up. "Butterfly, right?" "Yes, Coach Fitch, the 100 and 200. He made a small sound with his mouth that wasn't agreement and wasn't disagreement. It was the sound of a man deciding not to bother. "We'll see what you've got. Though I'll be honest with you," and here he did look up over the top of his reading glasses at her, "the program doesn't have a lot of room for developmental athletes. We're looking for people who are already there." Serena kept her face still. She had practiced that too. Her butterfly split at nationals was 59.3, he continued. "Decent for provincials, not what we need for Paris." He said it the French way, Paris, like he wanted to make sure she understood the distance between where she stood and where he was pointing. "I've got girls in this pool right now sitting at 56 flat. You understand what I'm saying?" Understood exactly what he was saying. What he did not say, but what was understood by every other athlete on that deck, 2 of whom exchanged a look that Serena saw and catalogued and filed away, was that Gerald Fitch had never, in 30 years of coaching, developed a black female swimmer into an elite international competitor. He had coached plenty of sprinters, had coached backstrokers and freestylers, and one remarkable butterflyer from Guelph who had taken silver in Tokyo. None of them looked like Serena. She had heard versions of this story before. She had grown up hearing it. In fact, the one where someone with a clipboard tells you exactly how much you are not enough, and they do it in a tone that suggests they're doing you a favor. "Understand," she said. "When do I get in the water?" I gave her lane 8, the outside lane, the lane they gave to people they were planning to cut. That first morning in Etobicoke, Serena swam alone in lane 8 while the other recruits, 6 of them, 3 from Ontario, 2 from BC, 1 from Quebec, trained in the center lanes with Fitch calling splits and making adjustments and clapping his hands in a sharp, encouraging rhythm that never reached lane 8. Assistant coach, a young woman named Britt, who had been a national-level backstroker herself, and who clearly had not yet learned to be as comfortable with indifference as Fitch, drifted over once and crouched at the pool edge. "Your entry's good," Britt said quietly. "Your pullout off the wall. You're not finishing the glide. You're breaking out too early." Serena nodded. She filed that too. What nobody in that building knew, what Serena had not told anyone on the program application except in the most bureaucratic terms, was that her mother, Serena Adjei, had been diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer 14 months earlier. Constance was in treatment. Constance was also still working her shifts because they could not afford for her not to, because the cleaning job Serena had held for 3 years had been eliminated when the building switched to a contract service, and the government support was not nothing, but it was also not enough. Serena's older brother Kwame had 2 kids under 5 and a mortgage and could barely help. So it was Serena, and the pool, and the number on the clock at the end of each length, and the quiet arithmetic of what it would mean if she made the team. The funding, the stipend, the possibility of not watching her mother run herself into the ground, and not swim for herself. She swam because her mother had never once complained in front of her, not once in 14 months of treatment, and Serena had decided that was a kind of courage she intended to answer. The first week, Fitch barely spoke to her. The second week, he watched her 200-meter butterfly time trial with his arms folded and said, 2:11, you need to be in 2:06 by February. He said it the way someone says the building is on fire, informational, without expectation that you'll do anything useful about it. I'll be in 2:06 by February, Serena said. Looked at her the way people look at someone who's just said something slightly embarrassing in public. Okay, he said, and walked away. Not sleep well that night. She lay in the narrow bed in the athlete housing, a converted townhouse in Etobicoke that smelled of instant noodles and ambition, and she stared at the ceiling, and she thought about her mother's hands. Serena Adjei had beautiful hands. Long fingers, dry from the hand sanitizer she used between every patient, nails kept short because she didn't have time for anything that needed maintenance. Serena could picture those hands, adjusting an IV line, folding a blanket, pressing a cool cloth to a forehead. She could also picture them wrapped around a phone at midnight, calling her daughter just to hear her voice, pretending everything was fine. As she got up at 4:45, she was in the water by 5:20. Britt found her there. The assistant coach stood at the pool edge for a moment, in the empty, echoing building, and then she pulled up a chair. Pullout, Britt said. Oh, I know. Show me again. This was how it started. Not with fanfare. Not with a movie-style montage. It started with 2 women in an empty pool at dawn, one of them in the water and one of them on the deck with a stopwatch and honest eyes, working on a problem together because it was the right thing to do. Britt had grown up in Hamilton. Her own career had ended at 25 with a shoulder surgery that didn't fully take. She coached because she loved the sport and because she understood, in a specific and personal way, what it felt like to be in a room where the attention was always slightly aimed somewhere else. She had never said any of this to Fitch. She was 29 years old and she needed the job. But she said it to Serena. One morning in November, when the 2 of them were the only ones on deck, because some truths are too useful to keep. Not going to coach you, Britt said. It was a flat statement, no drama in it. He's going to let you train here, and he's going to cut you in January and say you didn't develop fast enough. That's the plan. Serena kept her eyes on the pace clock. Then I need to develop faster. You need to develop so fast that he can't ignore the number. Britt looked at her. Can you do that? Well, tell me what the number is. 27 in the 100. For the 200, 205 by trials. Serena did the math in her head. It was the kind of math that requires you to already believe the answer is possible before you can solve for it. She had been at 2:11. She needed to find 6 seconds in 10 weeks. In swimming, 6 seconds is not 6 seconds. 6 seconds is a rebuilt body. Okay, she said. This is the part of the story that people want to skip. The part where nothing is happening except the slow, unglamorous work of getting better. There was no dramatic speech. There was no turning point that looked like a turning point while it was occurring. There were mornings when Serena's shoulders ached so deeply she could feel it in her back teeth, and she swam anyway. There were evenings when she called her mother and Constance sounded tired in a way that had nothing to do with the hour, and Serena talked about small things. What she'd eaten, a funny thing Britt had said, a pigeon she'd seen on the roof of the aquatics center, because her mother needed to laugh more than she needed to know the truth. There were also afternoons when Gerald Fitch stood at the end of her lane and watched a set with an expression she could not read. He never offered a correction. He never gave her a split. Once, in late November, he stopped beside her when she was pulling on her parka after practice and said, "Your entry's getting cleaner." That was all. But she noticed, and she was honest enough with herself to know that she noticed. In December, she went home to Scarborough for the weekend. Her mother was thinner than she'd been in September. They didn't talk about that either. Made jollof rice together on a Saturday afternoon, the kitchen warm and loud with Ghanaian gospel music that Constance played at a volume that was slightly too loud for the apartment, and they argued pleasantly about whether Serena was adding enough tomato paste, and Constance put her hands on either side of her daughter's face and looked at her for a long moment without saying anything. "Look serious," her mother said finally. "I am serious." Good. Constance let go of her face. Be serious, but also add more tomato paste. Serena added more tomato paste. She also cried a little in the bathroom later, quietly, where her mother wouldn't hear it. Then she came back out and they watched a British baking show together until 11 o'clock, and Serena took the last bus back to Etobicoke. Posted 2:08.4 in the January time trial. It was not 2:07. But it was not 2:11 either. The number sat on the board at the end of the session, and Serena stood in her lane with her goggles pushed up on her head, breathing hard, watching it. Gerald Fitch looked at the board. Then he looked at her. He made a note on his clipboard. He said nothing. Recruits who had been in the center lanes, the ones who had exchanged the look on that first day, were both sitting at 2:09 and 2:10. Serena's number was better. She knew he saw this, also knew it didn't guarantee anything. In sport, as in every other institution that was built before you arrived in it, the number is never quite enough on its own. There's always some other criterion that emerges when the number is no longer the problem. Britt caught her eye across the pool deck and gave her a single nod. That was all. That was enough. In February, at the mid-season assessment, Gerald Fitch sat across a table from Serena in a small office that smelled of old coffee and pool water, and he read from his clipboard for 4 minutes without looking up. He noted her improvements. He noted areas of concern. He told her that her technique had shown growth. He told her that the program was going to make its selection decisions in March after the qualifying meet in Vancouver. Then he put the clipboard down and he looked at her. "I'll be straight with you," he said. "What you've done in 4 months is not what I expected." He paused on that. "Not what I expected. You've been working with Britt." This was not a question. "Yes. A good technician," he said it neutrally. Not a compliment, not a reprimand. The number in Vancouver is going to matter. You're close. But close doesn't make a team. Serena looked at him steadily. "What time do I need?" 005.8. Adds 6 weeks. "I'll be there," she said. Looked at her the same way he had looked at her in October, when she had said she'd be at 2.6 by February. The look of a man who has decided in advance what the story ends like. "I hope so," he said. But his voice said, "I've already written the ending." Went back to the pool. She went back to Britt. She went back to 5 a.m. and cold deck tiles and the specific silence of a pool building before anyone else arrives, which is a silence unlike any other, thick with water and light and something that isn't quite hope but functions the same way. 3 weeks before Vancouver, she called her mother at 9 p.m., and Constance picked up on the first ring. "Good news," her mother said. "Not hello, just good news." "Oat, what?" Anne came back. "The mass is smaller." Serena sat down on the edge of her bed. She sat there for a moment and did not say anything, because there was nothing that was adequate to say. The mass is smaller. 4 words that rearranged everything. She could feel them moving things around inside her, shifting weight she hadn't realized she was carrying, redistributing it into something that was not quite lighter but was differently distributed, which is sometimes all you can ask for. Serena. Here, I'm here. You're crying, her mother said. Oh, I'm not. Yes, Serena. Oh, a little bit. Constance laughed, her real laugh, the one that went all the way up. I didn't call you so you could cry. I called you so you could go swim fast. Okay, Serena said. Okay. Mass is smaller, her mother said again, simply, as if saying it again was its own kind of joy. Mass is smaller, Serena repeated. Now go to sleep. You have practice tomorrow. Went to Vancouver on the last Thursday of March. The qualifying meet was held at the UBC Aquatic Center, a building she had competed in once before, at 18, in a provincial meet where she had finished fourth and eaten a disappointing hot dog on the seawall afterward with her mother. She remembered the hot dog more than the race. She remembered her mother saying, cheerfully, "Fourth is very good, Serena. That's in the top 4. She checked in. She found her lane assignment. She warmed up. She did not look at Gerald Fitch, who was in the coach's area with his clipboard and his reading glasses, and whatever it was he had already decided. Looked at Britt, who was standing behind the barrier and who held up her hand. Not a wave, just a hand, steady and open. And Serena looked at that hand and thought, I am not doing this to prove anything to him. I am doing this because my mother is getting better and I have 6 seconds to find, and I have found them. 200 meters butterfly final. 8 women. Serena in lane 4, center pool, which she had not expected. Someone had moved her from lane 8. She did not know who. She did not ask. Starters signal. The crowd noise dropping off, the particular silence that exists in the space between the starting signal and the start. They hit the water and the world went away. There is something true about elite swimmers that most people don't understand. The race is not 4 lengths of a pool. The race is one long thought. Everything you've done, every morning, every correction, every set and rep and dry land session assembles itself into a single unbroken idea that runs from the starting block to the wall, and your job is to stay inside that idea without letting anything interrupt it. Serena stayed inside it. And turn at 50 meters. The pullout, long, clean, not breaking out too early. Britt's voice in her head, finish the glide, finish the glide. The back half opening up. Her lungs beginning to ask questions she did not answer. The 150-meter mark and the familiar specific pain of butterfly in the last 50. The kind of pain that asks you who you are and means it. I knew who she was. Once she touched the wall. She pulled up her goggles and looked at the scoreboard. Zoo 4.9. A number sat there in orange pixels against the black board. She read it 3 times. She was aware of noise somewhere beyond the tile and the water. She was aware that the woman in lane 3 was looking at her scoreline with an expression that had something complicated in it. She was aware, peripherally, of a figure with a clipboard standing very still in the coach's area. I did not look at Gerald Fitch, not yet. I climbed out of the pool. Britt was through the barrier before anyone else, which was technically against the meet protocol, and which Britt clearly did not care about at all. They stood on the wet deck and Britt grabbed her by both shoulders and said, low and fierce and unambiguous, I told you. Oh, told me, Serena agreed. Later, after the medal ceremony, after the photographs, after she had called her mother 3 times. The first call, Constance didn't pick up because she had been watching on a laptop stream that her coworker had set up, and she was crying too hard to answer the phone, which Constance recounted with 0 embarrassment when she finally called back. Gerald Fitch found her near the warm-down pool. I stood for a moment. He had his clipboard. He looked like a man who had rehearsed several versions of whatever he was about to say. and had discarded all of them on the way over. "Oh, 4.9, he said. "Yes," Serena said. He paused. "That's a selection time." "Oh, I know." It was quiet for a moment. There was something working in his face, some calculation, some admission that he was not quite finishing. She watched him not finish it, and she felt something that wasn't anger and wasn't forgiveness and wasn't triumph. It was something quieter than any of those. It was the feeling of having been right about yourself when someone else was wrong about you, and discovering that their wrongness is their problem, not yours. "Welcome to the team," he said finally. I nodded once. "Thank you, Coach Fitch." I walked past him toward the warm-down pool. She did not look back. That night, she sat in her hotel room in Vancouver with a room service sandwich she had ordered with money she did not entirely have. And she called her mother, and they stayed on the phone for 2 hours talking about nothing important. About the neighbor's new dog, about a show Constance had started watching, about whether Serena should cut her hair before Paris, which Constance felt strongly she should not. "Look like yourself with it long," Constance said. "It gets in my goggles." Tuck it in better." Mom. "I'm just saying. You look like yourself." Serena looked at her reflection in the dark window. A 23-year-old woman in a hotel room in Vancouver with a half-eaten sandwich and a national team selection, and a mother who was getting better. She looked like herself. She looked exactly like herself. Would go to Paris. She would stand on the block in a pool that was not Lane 8, in front of a crowd she had not yet seen, with everything she had built in, every early morning she had chosen over sleeping in, assembled inside her and waiting. And Gerald Fitch would be in the coach's area with his clipboard and his reading glasses, watching a number he had not believed was possible appear on the scoreboard with her name next to it. Not because she needed him to see it, but because she had built something real, and real things have a way of being visible, whether anyone is looking for them or not. Mass was smaller. The number was 204.9, and Serena Adjei was going to Paris. I keep thinking about Lane 8. Not the race, not the scoreboard in Vancouver, not the moment Serena's time came up in orange pixels and the building got loud. I keep thinking about Lane 8, the outside lane, the one they give to people they've already decided about. And the fact that she got in the water anyway. There's something that happens when someone tells you who you are before you've had a chance to show them. It lands differently depending on who you are. Some people absorb it. Some people fight it in a way that costs them everything. And some people, the ones worth watching, go quiet in a way that isn't defeat. They go quiet the way a river goes quiet before it moves around something. Not stopped, just rerouting. Anna went quiet like that. She heard what Gerald Fitch wasn't saying, heard it as clearly as if he'd said it plainly, and she didn't argue. She didn't perform her worth for him. She went back to the water at 4:45 in the morning and she worked on her pullout off the wall, because that was the thing she could actually control. I think about that a lot. The discipline of working on the thing you can control, when everything around you is designed to make you feel like control isn't yours to have. That's not stubbornness. It's something sharper than that. It's knowing the difference between what someone else's opinion is worth and what your own effort is worth, and refusing to let the first one set the price of the second. And the thing about Serena that gets me, the thing I can't stop turning over, is that she wasn't doing it for him. She wasn't swimming to prove Gerald Fitch wrong. She was swimming because her mother's hands were tired, and the mass was there, and 2B04 was a number that meant something real. Her motivation had nothing to do with his doubt. That's the part that actually took intelligence, recognizing that someone else's low ceiling is their problem, not a fact about your height. As here's what I've come to understand. Watching stories like this one, the people who get it right aren't the ones who are never doubted. They're the ones who figure out, somewhere along the way, that being doubted is just information about the person doing the doubting. Gerald Fitch spent 30 years with a clipboard and never once built what Serena built in 4 months. That's not a coincidence. That's cause and effect, playing out slowly enough that most people miss it. Britt saw it. Britt, who had her own career ended by a surgery that didn't fully take, who showed up anyway and gave what she had honestly. She saw it because she was paying the right kind of attention. There's a kind of goodness in that. A choice to show up for someone even when the institution isn't asking you to. Even when it costs you something. I take from Serena's story is this: the number on the board at the end is real, but it's almost beside the point. What's real is the 4:45 a.m. What's real is her mother's voice saying the mass is smaller and Serena crying quietly and then going back to practice. What's real is the decision, made over and over again, to be someone whose integrity doesn't depend on being seen. That's not a talent. That's a choice, and it's available to everyone.